Hello, I'm going to experimentally run a whole turn. I think I have a window of opportunity and time to be able to do so. I'm going to leave the camera here, maybe sort of move it over to salient points, but I'm hopefully not going to have to move the camera too much, and so I'm going to keep it figured out on the board. I want you to be able to see as much as you can, and obviously there's a lot to see, and unfortunately I could have put it at the other end of the table, but then you would be seeing the charts and everything first, and really you want to see more of the map, but there's a wall here, so sorry about that. Anyway, that's as best it's going to get now. So, a turn. I have a sequence of play here. We have sequence of play on this chart, but I'm going to be using this for other charts as well. So I have another sequence of play chart here from another game in the series I will watch here. We start with the, where are we? We're on the fourth turn of this game. So that's April 1939. Each turn is a month. And here we are, the Pacific. We start with the preparation phase, and the first part of that is placing reinforcements. The rule book is very nicely laid out. You have the sequence of play here, and the rule book is laid out according to the sequence of play. So you can follow a turn by paging page after page through the rule book. So it's a very nice idea. It works very well. And that's what we'll be doing, placing reinforcements. So we have two reinforcements here. We have a carrier Ruyo, I think that is, and that will represent the carrier and various destroyer groups and so forth with it. And then we have for the USA we have a hull. These are you have to build hulls before you can get around to building boats, because nothing on the build table takes more than a year to build, except boats take longer, so you build the hulls first. So the USA gets a free hull. I'm just going to plonk it. No, I put it here on the this table here. It has a space for hull. Put it here for the USA, so that now that will be a bit quicker in building into, I think it probably a carrier. And the Japanese, you have to put your reinforcement in a home country city. So there's no threat on the water at the moment for the Japanese, so just for the sake of ease of play, I'm going to put it there in Tokushima. Now, the next part of the preparation phase is the weather check. So we roll a die. I rolled a 5, and we check the weather table, which is quite large. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then at the top you have the months. So each month has a different column. We're in April on 5. So the polar region is M for mud. I'll use my little homemade markers for this, because there weren't any in the game, but there you go, mud. I'm sorry, we don't have polar on this map. That would be in the Scandinavian maps. But the Arctic is also mud. So the Arctic's mud, the temperate zone, the Mediterranean zone, we don't have this map, the subtropical zone and the North Monsoon zone are all clear, so everywhere else is clear. So the rains have gone up from last turn, and the monsoon remains in the South Monsoon zone. So yes, monsoon's quite common for these first 4 months of the year in the South Monsoon zone. And I visited Malaysia and India They actually would be the North Monsoon zone, and the monsoons are quite fun. Torrential rains, like flooding the whole streets. So the next part to check is initiative. So we roll for initiative now. The Japanese at quite an important point here, because they're cutting off the southeast that remains of China, that remains in Chinese hands. The Chinese lost several forces from their basically from 4 units from there, 1 from combat and 3 from being out of supply. So they've managed to cut the supply to that area, but there's even though there were cities, they didn't have enough kind of like hexes around them to be counted as supplies, cities with supply still. But the Chinese, they have a kind of like a, what do you call it, a bulge here into the salient, so they could they're still sort of holding a gap in the Chinese line here to cut it off. So the Chinese need to cut that off. If they don't do it quick, the Chinese might reinforce it. So the Japanese want the initiative, but having said that, they only have 3 points of initiative bonus left, and that's the points you would add on to a 1d6. You'd really want to spend all of that to be sort of more or less guaranteed of getting initiative, but then they won't have any save for another turn that may be more critical. But I'm playing this game to play the game and to sort of get back into the system and so forth, rather than trying to play it so intelligently. So I'm going to spend it all, because if I spend just 1 or 2, there's a good chance they will miss it. So their modifier goes down to 0, could go up to 5 either way, and we roll for initiative with the Japanese adding 3. The Japanese rolled a 6 anyway, and so again in the Chinese 5, so anyway they got the initiative. Now, interestingly, the Chinese can ask for a reroll. So if you lose initiative, you can ask for a reroll. It can happen once, so per initiative phase. The downside of that is if the reroll is rolled again with any modifiers, so the Japanese will get their +3 again. If the Chinese don't get it, then they will lose bonus points, so effectively at this point that will be given to the Japanese. The Chinese do want the initiative because they want to reinforce that hex. And 1 point is not that much, they're going to risk it, so we roll the initiative again. And it's even, so the Japanese keep it and they get a bonus point for the forced reroll. So, Japanese have initiative. So that's the preparation phase. Now we move to the active side action segment. And basically in that we have reorganization, naval phase, land movement phase, combat phase and exploitation phase. So we start with reorganization. First we flip headquarters. Now headquarters get flipped when they move units into reserve. We'll go into that later. I haven't moved any reserves yet this game, so there's no headquarters to flip. And we also would remove markers. Now that's to do with upgrading units. So when you do research and you gain the ability to create better, say, tank units or air units, so, or subunits, then you have to sort of pay for the build in the turn before. I can't remember exactly how it goes, so I might be making a few mistakes here, but generally the point is they get marked, and this is the point where you remove that marker and upgrade that unit, even if it's in the field. The new tanks are fed into the front line. So I don't have any of that happening. Then we go to supply check. Supply check happens twice, at the beginning and more or less at the end of the turn. Yes, at the end of the active part of the turn. And if you're out of supply in both those parts of the turn, then you will take hits, which is what happened to the Chinese here. So you could be out of supply at the beginning and get yourself into supply by the end, and you'll be okay. So the supply checks are such that zones of control, even contested zones of control, cut supply. So the Japanese have cut supply to this fellow, who's not on a city or anything like that. He's just on a place that generates resources. So he is out of supply, and we do have counters for those. Oh, but I think I haven't punched them yet. So I'll try and keep talking while... I do have them punched from other games in the series, but I'm sort of trying to use the ones from this game for this game. They're essentially the same counter you get for marking supply, but with a... which is an oil can, sort of half full, and the outer supply markers are oil cans completely full, completely empty. So completely un-half full. So here we go, let's touch that. Well, it looks like there's only 3 supplied with this. I think there's too few markers for Pearl Harbor, but most people I think that buy this game are going to be buying, or would have bought the other games too, so that's not so much a problem. So he's out of supply. Can you see that? Out of supply. Dink. Okay. Are any of the Japanese out of supply? No, because they have not gone far into enemy territory. They've just sort of pushed out salients from there, because they kind of surrounded the southeast with little pockets from the coast and Foochow, near Hong Kong. And then, of course, the Japanese occupied China to the north of it. So they are fine. So then we move to repairing hits on land units. That speaks for itself, unless you didn't watch any previous videos, but essentially in combat you can take hits. There's a unit here that has taken a hit, more or less like step losses. So I would repair that, and that's just 1 replacement point. It doesn't need any supply or material to repair. But the Japanese have been spending like crazy so far. Having said that, there was a production phase at the end of last turn, so they have replacement points. They have 7 a turn at the moment, which is kind of more or less their maximum capacity until they take some factories from China and take some oil from the Dutch East Indies. So I'm going to spend a point of supply. I've got some punched out here. A point of replacement point, sorry, not supply, and to mend that hit. So all their units are up to full strength now. That's back up to full strength. So you see, it's nice in combat. You can you play rounds of combat, and you can retreat out of combat after a round, and then mend your units back up. But of course, that's not going to happen all the time. As the war progresses and everything gets, there's so much to spend things on. Rail movement. Now don't forget, this is the active size go, so we'll do all this same thing again in the other player's active segment, and then we go to the more general segments again, like production, research, etc. So now rail movement. Now the Japanese are able to move 1 unit by rail in Japan and 1 unit in their occupied territories in China. It's just like a limit. Some countries don't have much limits. You know, for example, Germany, and within Germany and their conquered territories can move things like 7 rail units by rail in this phase. I don't believe I've got much movement to do, because I'm having to leave some units in the territory out of enemy zone of controls, in the interior rather, to fight partisans. So I'm not moving everyone up to the front line. And actually that reminds me, I want to move some people out of the front line because the Chinese just developed or bought, as it were, a ton of partisans at the end of last term, and they will be sort of busy. They can damage airfields and planes and stuff, ports. Shall I move someone by rail? No, they're okay because they're out, so they're okay, and I don't have anyone to move up to the front line, so no rail movement. No rebasing aircraft. That's probably familiar to most people. They can rebase their movement rate and still fly missions later in the turn. I don't need any of that because small enough distances there at the moment to be effective. And our engineers finish installation. So engineers who didn't move last turn and started building, for example, a fort or a new airfield will be able to finish it now, or half finishing it if I finish it ending. I just began none of that, but I want to remember to begin some this term. And that's the end of the reorganisation phase. Now we move to the naval phase. And sorry for all you PTO fans, myself included, but there's not much of it at the moment because we're fighting the Chinese-Japanese limited war. So essentially the Japanese can move their navies wherever they like, completely uncontested, providing they're only annoying the Chinese. Though the Chinese do have 3 air units, 2 now, because the Japanese knocked one out, which could interfere with naval operations. I haven't done that yet, but they're going to get, it's difficult, it's that classic situation. Their air forces are very weak. Do they use them and see them get knocked out really quickly, or do they save them for a more appropriate moment later, which probably generally just means you just save them to get knocked out later? But I mean, the one that got knocked out earlier was part of an air combat where it did succeed in aborting a Chinese air unit, so it wasn't able to perform its mission. So that, they could have some effect. So I think I will say that till a more crucial time. Think about the Chinese there, but we're doing the Japanese now. Naval phase I was doing, yes, wasn't I? Yeah, naval phase. So I didn't know, because basically we'd moved any infantry that had been raised elsewhere, or that were elsewhere, into the Chinese front now. Yes, that's right. I should be moving up some supplies, so that's what we will do. Because supply has to be transported by sea if you need it overseas, and the Japanese have spent all the supply that was stocked in Manchuria and so forth at the beginning of the game. So naval movement phase. During this phase, the non-active side, so that it's only China at the moment, they could perform intercepts, or at least attempt to. So we have the option of doing, and we can do this in any order we choose, although they're just listed in this order. Patrol missions, convoy movement, that's what we'll be doing. Strategic movement. Normally naval units can move 4 sea zones. That's the ones separated by these bluey white lines. These lines, jagged lines, sort of browny, are the weather zones. So at the moment that's plenty enough movement, so we don't really need to strategically move any navy. Submissions, not needed. Sea supply. What is that now? Let me check. I can't remember if that is moving supply by seas or supplying stuff at sea, because let's see, sea supplies, strategic sea supplies. Sea supply is an active mission. A standard convoy transports goods and supplies to a friendly port. If the destination hex is either a port in an enemy zone of control or postal hex, a battle vector must be marked. Oh yes, okay, so that's what I want to do, sea supply. So convoy mission would be actually with convoy mission's different from sea supply because it's not an active mission, I guess. 721 for active missions. The standard missions are convoy movement and strategic rebasing. They can use the ship's full range. Active missions can either range up to 30 hexes or be conducted anywhere inside an adjacent sea zone. I see, so this sea supply, which is... Yeah, so the convoy would be to friendly port. This would be to an enemy zone of control or a coastal hex, not a port. Which I don't need to do, so it would be a standard convoy mission. Then other missions: evacuation, evacuating troops, shore bombardment, naval land combat, so that would be against coastal defences, that kind of thing. Port attacks and invasions, and then lastly mine laying or mine sweeping. We're going to just do convoy movement, and that's quite simple. So there's a destroyer flotilla there and 2 transports, 2 points of supply. Transports can carry 5, so we only need 1, and 1, 2 sea zones, so these can actually move back, which I will do. It's in the rules. And we'll put that supply, in fact we'll put it here, so in the Shanghai. Okay, so that's, then we would do naval combat, which might have occurred if we'd had interceptions, or if we'd been searching for enemy ships that were, say, on patrol, or we attacked ports. So we have no naval combat this time. Now we go to land movement phase, and we start with the engineer activity. And what I need is a handy build chart, which is on here, because getting myself up to speed on the game, I noticed in the last turn that forts only need... They take a year to... No, that's 1 month. Okay, 1 month to build, and they just cost 3 material, because I was wondering what I was going to spend a lot of my material on at this point in the war. So I'm thinking the Japanese might build forts. I think they just give a +1 modifier to any units in that hex. But I don't actually have my engineers in the appropriate places at the moment, so we're not going to do that. Yes, I've got one there. He's moving forward. Okay, so no engineer activity. Land movement active side. Okay. So let's move this. I'll have to turn it around, so no, I can't do that while it's recording. Okay, let's see if I can do this. I practiced this earlier, but being able to look at the camera from the other side, so I don't know how this is going to work. Let's see if that's helpful. Okay. And then I tip this up somewhat, and I've no idea what you are looking at. Let me see. Yes, the sea. Okay. Okay, I kind of hope... What's that? Why is my tweezers poking? Sorry about this. Okay, you're over there. Really want to be here. This is... Again, isn't it? Okay. Director. You get a close up anyway. Okay, it will stop wobbling a bit. So, movement. Here's the supply we just moved in. I'll put it there at the moment so I can see the bombers and long range bombers and yeah. Okay. So you can see that this is the objective, to take this hex, which is a mountain hex. Oh no, it's not a mountain hex, it's a city hex, a whole city hex, but it has a river running round it, and it has this anti-aircraft power here, and this is a replacement point, so it's a replacement point city, which I guess I must remember to spend JCPs, which are Japanese, Chinese points, which you have to spend in the limited war to do any sort of fighting and so forth. But movement's free in that respect. Okay, we shall go ahead. So these guys will be crossing a river. I'm not sure how to handle combat if they come in and they come in on the other side, so I might have to pause before we do that. But anyway, I'll go on ahead. I've got some quite strong units here, so I'm going to move 2 of them in, because I have to pay 2 JCPs to move. If I put that one in as a sort of reserve, I have to pay another JCP, and the Japanese have been spending them quite a lot. So